Well, good morning, everybody. First map we're going to look at today shows the winds at 500 millibars. This is about halfway through the density of the atmosphere. We're up there around 5 kilometers above the surface of the Earth. And what you're looking at is the jet stream level winds, the lowest levels of them. And what we've got here is a deep trough that has got some very strong winds in this area that are going to help pull this system straight toward the Great Lakes today. It's being fed by a large ridge that's over parts of the Gulf of Mexico, and this particular setup is almost textbook for delivering a large spring storm system with a high-end severe weather outlook. The surface level winds this afternoon will show you where that low will be, somewhere over western Iowa, and you can almost see all of the fronts, the surface level fronts that are associated with this system as it starts to occlude later on today over Iowa as it moves toward Lake Superior. And what this is doing is we're going to be able to tap into quite a bit of unstable air and also just a tremendous amount of moisture here. But the difference between this system and the one a week ago is the timing of this system and when the main front will swipe through much of the Midwest and Mid-South. Our all hazards weather map today shows you that we have blizzard warnings to the north of this in 5 states, so coming out of parts of Wyoming into Nebraska, North and South Dakota, and then Minnesota, and this extends into southern Manitoba and eventually into Ontario. Winter storm warnings surround this. We're going to watch a large-scale synoptic scale wind event that's going to open up throughout much of the Midwest, getting over here toward the Appalachian Mountains back down to the south. We've already got red flag warnings and high wind watches out for parts of the plains. And as this system kind of moves on off to the north and east, it's also going to be producing a significant icing event parts of Ontario and Quebec and possibly into Maine. So as we just assess the hazards of this particular storm system, I also want to point out that on the back side of it, there's still colder air. So we have a frost advisory that's out for parts of California's Central Valley here, the Sacramento Valley. And this whole pattern, though, that's giving us these systems is going to relax after this one. But in the near term, we still have the severe weather threat to contend with. So we're going to go straight to the Storm Prediction Center site. As I've said many times, they're the best in the business at doing this. They've got 2 areas to monitor today. We've got this region in eastern Iowa, western Illinois, northern parts of Missouri here with a moderate risk. And then down into southern Missouri, back into Arkansas. We also have another one. I got asked a good question the other day, why don't I show more analogs? What I have found is that when I show you historical weather patterns that look similar to this, we often tend to lean on them too much and don't understand the differences between them. And so I don't want to show those and make you think that this particular outbreak is going to look like one in the past. Many of us, by the way, think about this day, April 4th, as being the second day of a 2-day severe weather outbreak back in 1974, which for years held the record for the most tornadoes in a single day, April 3rd and 4th, 1974. But as it stands, what you're looking at here is the risk of tornadoes today. And just an important point, while this is in the same position as the system on Friday, this is much farther to the west. But again, these are relatively high probabilities, and in last night's in-depth report, we looked at the wind shear values here. And I just want to let you know that if you're living in these areas, okay, where the severe storms could be later today and tonight, just be weather aware. Have multiple ways to access weather information, be it apps, be it your local news stations, be it the weather radios. Please get a weather radio. That's a great resource. In addition to this is the wind threat today for straight line winds and the hail threat. All right, so we're looking at a pretty high-end event here in terms of the ability to produce strong to severe weather. Now, as we let this system move on into the east tomorrow, this is what the risks look like. And the Storm Prediction Center has really increased the area over which they've given an enhanced look. So the front, I told you it was slower. It's going to slowly move across Illinois and stretch all the way down to Texas. It'll be this whole length late tonight, which means we're going to have an overnight severe weather threat along this area, and then tomorrow morning pressing across the rest of like the Ohio Valley, the Tennessee Valley, and up here in the eastern Great Lakes. So the tornado threat is highest from parts of southeastern Illinois through Michigan. All right. The wind threat is confined farther to the south where we expect the storm to line out, and there is a hail threat in the same locations that we're expecting the risk of tornadoes. So please just understand the next 2 days, if you live in this section of the country, be very weather aware of what this system's going to do. Now, I mentioned a moment ago that there is a synoptic scale wind event happening with this as well. And we're going to use the high-res NAM model to play out the next 60 hours looking at wind gusts, maximum accumulated wind gusts. What we can identify is there's a large area in through here that we're expecting the winds to be at least 35 to 50 plus miles an hour in this area. And that's actually what's prompted the blizzard warning on the back side of this system, these strong synoptic scale winds that are accompanying this. So talking about that blizzard, this is the latest update from the European model, showing you again just through the end of this week total snow accumulation. There will be a swath in through here that has better than a 60 to 70% chance of picking up over a foot of snow. But you notice that the snowfall amounts by the European model, again, this is using a 10-to-1 ratio. We do have locations here that are getting up there above that 10 to 12 inch range. I would not be surprised if there are a few places that pick up 20 inches out of this, but it's adding a lot of snow in an area that already has a lot of snowpack on it, like the Red River Valley of the North. Okay, let's go to the high-res NAM and get a good look at this system. Let's get us out here about 9 o'clock this morning on Tuesday. So as we watch this system open up, all of the snow on the backside with the strong winds, this is the prompting of the blizzard warning. There will be an area in through here that gets some ice. Now, one of the things that did change from last night's model runs is that we now have a little bit more uncertainty on these early day potential severe weather storms that could pop out right in this area. The models maybe just trended a little later in the day with that, but that doesn't mean anything. This is a challenging forecast. You watch it all day long in this area. But this is now getting into 7 p.m. tonight. This is the main frontal boundary kind of coming through tonight in the overnight hours. And again, we now see the timing of that front, much different from last Friday, moving across from Lake Michigan to Texas. And this is what opens up the severe weather threat on Wednesday in the eastern Corn Belt, in parts of the Mid-South, getting down here into the south. On the northern side of this, we've already looked at the snowfall, but notice there is significant ice accumulation happening across this area. And this low will continue to press through Ontario and Quebec, and it will leave a frontal boundary. You can see it right in through here. This is now out to Thursday midday. It'll leave a frontal boundary right in this area that's going to stall out between a large ridge over the southeast and the high pressure that's building in behind it. So after this, we're going to watch for a lot of rain to fall right in through this area as that front continues to kind of move its way toward the south and east. Behind it, we do have more systems coming into the northwest. We'll look at those again in a few seconds. But I wanted to highlight that ice threat just so you can see it. This is where we expect from the European model over the next 60 hours to see ice accumulating. And let's go from there to really discussing what this pattern's going to do. So this is it. This is the trough. This is the short wave we're talking about. And it really takes on an interesting inflection, runs over the top of this ridge straight toward Lake Superior, and then eventually goes all the way up here to Greenland, south of Greenland. And this is what's important. We've not had troughs in these areas consistently for all of March and now the beginning of April, which means that's going to open up the United States to this. A pattern that gives us a ridge parked somewhere over the Rocky Mountains and troughs over the east. Now this does spread a little cooler air east and brings a lot of warm air to the west first, through the Rockies, and then into the central United States. But flow from this direction in every season except summer brings in drier conditions. We do expect the Pacific Northwest to continue to stay wetter. Too many troughs. These have been getting deeper here in the Gulf of Alaska with time, so I expect that to stay wetter. But as we play this forward, okay, there's the wetter conditions coming in. I will be watching potentially after the 13th and 14th for the pattern to go right back to what it was. Okay, again, flow like this. And that particular setup is what gave us the severe storms we're talking about right now. It gave us the risk of the heavy snows on the backside. So we have to be aware that this pattern might revert back after the middle of this month. I'd like to show it to you on the models. So GFS left, European right. We've already seen system number 1. You're going to watch that frontal boundary stall out right here as the next low comes in late this week into the Pacific Northwest. And then another round coming into the Pacific Northwest on Saturday. The front still stalled out here. As we then play into the weekend, there's more onshore flow in the northwest. A weak little clipper tries to go over the Great Lakes. It's in both models here, so we're going to watch out for some late Sunday, early Monday rainfall in this area. And then that front sweeps through New England by the time we get into Tuesday. See it there? And there's a low that could curl up on the east coast. And again, why? The flow is doing something like this. All right, so here's the ridge, trough, trough. So that's where the activity is going to be in these models. That takes us out all the way to next Tuesday. So that's a full week out in this forecast. But I want to make a point here. Look at the European model. Do you notice that by the time we get out there to like the 13th, 14th, it's dropping troughs down into California again? And that's the top thing I really want to keep a close eye on. So let's distill this down into a couple of maps. This is the next 10 days, probability of getting at least an inch. So it's the lingering front here where we see the highest probabilities and the persistent onshore flow in the Pacific Northwest that has trended wetter in recent forecasts. We're also going to take a look at who's going to be on the drier side of this. So this is the chance of seeing less than a half inch. What I want to note is this area is opening up to be drier, which means there's going to be a lot of folks in here that are going to take advantage of some of this warmth and starting getting a lot of field work going in this area. Okay, from here, where do we expect a frost in the next 7 days? Everywhere in gray. But this has been something that when I go back and look at my forecast from March, I have consistently under forecast. It's the arrival of this warmer air as this pattern opens up. This is a 5-day sliding window of average temperature anomalies. And as we get out there past this system this week and into this weekend and next week, watch the temperatures really begin to moderate. We're cooler here because of snow feedback. We're cooler here because of the lingering front and rainfall. But warm air is really starting to invade a lot of North America. Now, what I under forecast, I think, was just, I didn't think we'd be able to get this warm at this point. There wasn't a whole lot of indications of that back in March, but we have to adjust, and this is what we've got now. How long does that last? Well, as we play this out here, this is April 10th through the 15th, and let's keep going all the way out there to April 14th through the 19th. Can you see what happened? The flow reverted back to this. This is another setup for active severe weather in through this area. Cooler conditions coming into the west, and just a jet stream that'll run in between the two. So we're going to revert back to what we've had after we get a little bit of a break from what we've been experiencing. All right. So I want to let you know something. That same pattern is also in the GFS. This isn't just one model. You can see it diving down and doing that as we get out there past the 13th and 14th. In between now, the system now, and the 13th and 14th, we do have a more benign setup. And that's why the week 2 forecasts kind of are still showing this drier air in through here during that time period. But now the week 2 forecasts are picking back up on the wetter conditions here, possibly wetter conditions down here in Texas. I'd love to see this happen. We need this moisture. But again, these 3 maps, all week 2 forecast maps, are going to evolve quite a bit in the coming days. If you get a chance to read the report, I do talk about western U.S. snowpack and snow melt, and we're certainly looking here at an abundant amount of snow and a major spring flooding threat. I talk about the reservoirs and how they are in California with respect to their historical averages. Only a few of these are below their historical averages. Many of them will be taking on spring flood mitigation strategies as the snow begins to melt. And we also talk about the spring flooding threat here on the Red River Valley of the North and throughout the Mississippi Basin and its tributaries. This is the latest spring update from NOAA. If I had to make an adjustment, I would just say that with the additional snow coming through this area, I would probably say that this river basin here and right here will likely have be increased to major, okay, like a flood threat. Quick update on South America. No real changes. Still wettest weather here in parts of like Sao Paulo, Paraná, Santa Catarina into Paraguay. Near normal rains throughout the rest of Brazil's growing area. It's driest in southern Brazil down here in Rio Grande do Sul into Uruguay and along the Paraná River. So not too much of a change there. Okay, be safe today. I will be flying over some of these storms tonight on my way to Omaha tonight, and we'll hopefully be able to avoid some of the nasty weather. Take care. We'll talk soon. Thanks.